Mr. Seth Daniels ended the call with a big smile, happy thanks to my skills. I had easily moved over $10 million through 4 countries, going through 12 banks along the way. I made sure his money was safe from the government and kept it out of trouble. I'm Ryan Mitchell, a name that means something in the world of financial deals. I move money, hide assets, and keep my clients out of legal trouble. I don't ask questions. I don't pry into my clients' affairs, and they don't pry into mine. It's a strategy that keeps both of us safe from legal scrutiny. I know some of my clients' business ventures are far from legal, but I live by the rule: if you don't ask, you won't have to worry about the truth. The work I do has been rewarding in more ways than one. My personal portfolio is a testament to that, with 16 bank accounts scattered across 8 countries, 10 cryptocurrency wallets, and a company that manages my assets and covers every financial need. I've kept a low profile by drawing a modest $50,000 annual salary meant for any unexpected expenses. It's a strategy that keeps me below the radar, avoiding any civil lawsuits, legal disputes, or family drama. Over the years, my clients have offered me plenty of rewards for my services, everything from drugs to women, vacations, and even security details. But until now, I've turned all of I've had to reconsider, though, particularly when it comes to matters of surveillance and protection. Thankfully, the people I've helped in the past were more than willing to lend their support, grateful for what I've done for them. My wife Emily, on the other hand, is blissfully unaware of the extent of my activities. She believes I'm just a financial advisor, a title I hold with the proper certifications. She doesn't know the bill numbers behind my wealth or the offshore accounts that keep our $5 million estate is running smoothly. She just wants the bills to be paid, the mortgages to be handled, and life to be comfortable. Emily doesn't ask questions. She's happy with her yearly upgrades to luxury cars and her limitless budget for shopping and entertainment. I've been convinced she was happy and satisfied with our life together. Our relationship was solid and full of passion, especially in the bedroom. She knew how to push my buttons a few nights each week and match my intensity. For a long time, everything felt perfect. It was like living in a paradise built on love, excitement, and adventure. But beneath that seemingly perfect surface, trouble was brewing. I was too blind to see it. Emily, the woman I had courted for 2 years before marrying at 25, was now 30. She was a stunning picture of what most would call a trophy wife. She had a curvaceous figure, sparkling blue eyes, and flowing blonde hair. She turned heads wherever we went. Men flocked to her. I liked Emily, but she always kept her distance, proudly showing off her engagement ring and the 3-carat diamond I'd given her when we married before we met. I learned about her college romance with a guy named Landon Blake, a man she had once loved deeply before he chose a different path, joining the Marines. Their relationship fizzled out as his military career took off. Years later, Landon returned to the city, and with him came the old feelings. Emily had buried them, but he naturally reconnected with her. I recognized a few familiar faces, including my wife. She was under the spell of nostalgia. She gave him her phone number after he tracked her down through a mutual friend. That's when the texts and calls started. They were at first innocent, but they became increasingly flirtatious as he tried to set up meetings to relive their past. 6 weeks ago, I noticed a shift in Emily's behavior. She seemed off, like something was weighing heavily on her. It didn't take long to connect the dots. Her secret conversations with Landon were getting to her. First, she was getting a lot more attention and was acting differently in bed. It was exciting, but I could tell it wasn't the same Emily I knew. I decided to keep a closer eye on her. It wasn't until a friend let slip at a barbecue that everything clicked. He said Landon was back in town, and suddenly Emily's recent behavior made perfect sense. I acted quickly, reaching out to one of my business contacts and explaining the situation. I had done a lot for him. He didn't waste any time putting resources in motion. In just a few days, I had a comprehensive report on Landon Blake. It included everything from his birth certificate to his military records. I also had daily transcripts of his text exchanges with Emily. At first, their messages were harmless. But it didn't take long for the tone to change. Emily had tried to resist at first. But she soon gave in to his relentless flirting. Over the course of 4 weeks, Landon managed to get her to agree to a lunch date. I was really annoyed that he had the nerve to ask her to wear something revealing, saying he missed her. What made it worse was that Emily went along with it, even considering going commando like they used to when they were younger. I was pretty mad. I hadn't felt that angry in years. After talking with some of my contacts, we decided it was time for a confrontation. I caught them in the act with backup close by just in case things got out of hand, thanks to my surveillance. Team, we had a good idea of when and where they'd be meeting. When I walked into the restaurant, I spotted them right away in a quiet corner. Emily was dressed provocatively, with no bra in sight, which only made me angrier. They sat close, backs turned to the rest of the patrons, clearly comfortable in each other's presence. As I approached, I noticed one of my bodyguards shadowing me from a distance. I took a seat across from them, trying to keep my anger in check. "Hey, Emily," I said calmly. I greeted her calmly, keeping my eyes locked on hers. "Aren't you going to introduce me to your friend?" I glanced at Landon, who looked puzzled, while Emily's face was a mixture of shock and guilt. Their hands were still entwined on the table, and as Emily tried to pull hers away, Landon held on, a smug smile on his face. "He wasn't going anywhere, honey. This is Landon Blake." Emily stammered, her anxiety evident. Landon stayed silent, clearly enjoying the situation. She gave a little grin and screamed, "She's mine now, and there's nothing you can do." I kept my cool, though I could feel the tension rising. "I need to speak with my wife privately." My tone was cold but steady. "Would you mind giving us a moment?" Landon let go of her hand and stood. I motioned for Emily to follow, and she did, clutching her purse tightly as I led her toward the back of the restaurant. Once inside the empty men's room, I confronted her. "Emile," I said. "No bra and a dress like that? What the hell is going on?" I demanded. She stood there, tears filling her eyes, unable to form a response. I lifted her dress, confirming my worst fears, no underwear. I turned to rage as I forced her to look in the mirror. "No panties? Really? Is this how you act when I'm not around?" I growled. "Explain yourself," I said. Emily tried to cover herself. "It's not what you think," she said, her voice rising. "I can explain," she pleaded, desperation clear in her voice. I wasn't having it. "Listen closely. If you want to save this marriage, you'll follow my instructions to the letter. Otherwise, don't even think about coming home. This relationship is over. Get your purse, walk straight out of here without looking back at him, and get in your car. Drive home and make some coffee. I'll be with you in. I'll wait 10 minutes before we have our talk. You're to stay off your phone. No calls or texts to him or anyone else. I'll deal with your friend and explain why you had to leave so suddenly." As I watched her avoid making eye contact, her guilt was clear. She knew she'd been caught in the worst possible situation before she walked out. I added, "One more thing. Don't change out of that dress when you get home. I expect you to be. Wear what you have on right now. If you can't do that, don't bother coming back tonight. We'll talk more when I get home." Emily left, and I was hit by disbelief. That's when Landon stepped forward. I was relieved to see he was safe and no longer tied to the military. Old memories resurfaced. He was my first love. It had taken years for me to move on after he walked out of my life. The spark between us had long since faded. His presence still stirred something in me, but regardless of those feelings, I knew one thing for certain: my love for Ryan was unshakable. He had been the love of my life since the day we met. I never wanted to hurt him or risk what we had, which made this whole situation so painful. Landon had always known how to play me. He used his charm and flirtatious words to reel me back in like I was still that naive girl from years ago. I hated how easily I fell for it. Despite my best efforts to resist Landon's constant advances and explicit texts, I eventually gave in. I reluctantly agreed to meet him for lunch. Every conversation with him left me feeling guilty. I should have told Ryan the moment Landon came back into my life. I should have been honest about our exchanges. But I kept it to myself, and now I regret it. Landon had always made me question my choices, make me wonder if I belonged with him instead of where I was when he suggested I was something sexy. I foolishly agreed, fully aware of how inappropriate it was. The temptation to relive those old feelings even for just a moment clouded my judgment. I still can't believe I even thought about not wearing underwear. Was I really that shallow? Yes, I guess I was. He always insisted I didn't wear them back then, and just the idea of seeing him stirred something in me. I should have kept these memories buried, but guilt weighed on me. One of his texts reignited my desire to meet him. I justified it as harmless, a little nostalgic trip down memory lane. But when I walked into that restaurant and saw him, the old chemistry hit me like a wave. Landon looked better than ever. His time in the Marines had shaped him into this raw masculine figure, and the attraction between us sparked immediately. My cheeks burned as he kissed me and led me to a quiet booth, making the moment. It felt like we were back in the old days, laughing and reminiscing. For a moment, it seemed like everything was the same. I got a rush of excitement when he held my hand. I forgot about everything else for a second. I felt a strange sense of comfort, but that feeling disappeared when Ryan showed up out of nowhere. He had a look on his face that was a mix of amusement and malice, which made me feel uneasy. Ryan sat down across from us, and his grin made me feel even more uncomfortable. My heart sank as reality hit me. This wasn't just some harmless lunch. It looked bad, and Ryan knew it. When his eyes moved down and caught sight of us holding hands, it was like watching his heart break right in front of me. I saw the pain and anger in his gaze. All I wanted was to turn back time and stop myself from causing him this kind of hurt. I had never intended to betray him. And yet, here I was, the source of his pain, the man I had loved and shared my life with. For the past 5 years, Ryan has looked at me with disdain, distrust, and a sense of betrayal. Seeing me sitting there with another man, a ghost from my past, shocked me. I was speechless, overwhelmed with guilt and regret. When Ryan asked to talk, I felt sick with dread, knowing what was coming. He led me toward the men's room, and I could feel fear and shame washing over me. When he lifted my dress to reveal my lack of underwear, I felt humiliated. I could only imagine what he was thinking. I felt like I had failed him as a wife. His instructions for me to go home and wait for him came in a voice that made it clear there would be no argument. His authority left me shaken. I knew that if I had any hope of salvaging our marriage, I had to listen, no matter how terrified I was of what would happen next. But when Ryan mentioned confronting Landon, fear gripped me. Landon was big, strong, and Ryan was trained to fight, and I couldn't stand the thought of him getting hurt. I was torn between wanting to warn him and following his orders. I tried to apologize, but he was insistent. He made it clear I was to leave without changing, showing how serious things had become. I dreaded the conversation that was to come. How had I let myself get pulled into this mess? Landon was part of my past, and I had never wanted him back in my life. It was supposed to be just a fun, innocent catch-up. But I could see how from Ryan's point of view it looked like the beginning of something far worse. Damn it, how do I even start to fix this? Walking through the restaurant, I felt the weight of everyone's eyes on me like they could see right through me. I couldn't bear to look at Landon, knowing he was probably wondering why I was leaving so abruptly. It took several minutes of sitting in the car crying before I could even drive home. The ride seemed endless, and the image of Ryan. I kept seeing Ryan's face, and I was flooded with memories of his hurt and anger. How could I have done this to him? How had I let Landon twist me around his finger so easily? Now I was left to face the fallout of my own stupidity. Once I got home, I set up the coffee pot, but my mind was elsewhere. I kept thinking about Ryan and the confrontation he was having with Landon. What would come of it? Would he be hurt? What would become of us? I sat in the quiet of my kitchen, my mind racing. How long would it take before Ryan walked through the door? Would he be furious? Could our marriage be saved after this? I had to believe it could be. I couldn't imagine life without him. I needed him to understand that he was still the love of my life. In desperation, I sought comfort by sitting down and thinking about the situation. Meanwhile, Ryan returned to the table. His eyes were locked on Landon. He seemed to think that Emily wasn't coming back anytime soon. He remarked, "I came by to talk to you. It's clear Emily still has feelings for you, and I know she's been easily swayed by your influence, especially over the last few weeks. But make no mistake, she's my wife. I won't share her affections. I'm not here to control her, but today I'm giving her a choice. Either she stays with me or she leaves for you. But she can't have both. She should make that decision on her own, without any pressure from you. If she uses you, then fine, but if she stays with me, she's done with you. No more contact, no texts, nothing. I'm not going to argue with you about this." Landon leaned back, smirking. "Look, she's her own person. I'll call or text her whenever I feel like it. She doesn't belong to you, and she's not going to stop seeing me. She'll be with me again soon enough. She can't resist the connection we had. You'll just have to deal with it." Ryan kept his composure. His expression was calm as he continued, "Landon, you're a good-looking guy. Strong and confident. There are plenty of single women out there who'd be more than happy to be with you. Why chase after a married woman? You might think you've got everything figured out, but you're underestimating me," he said, leaning forward. His eyes narrowed. "You don't know the first thing about my connections or what I'm capable of. That's where you made your mistake." He continued, "I know everything about you. How are Robert and Karen still enjoying their 2 dogs, Casey and Mickey? It's been a while since you saw your sister, Hannah, down in Austin, hasn't it? Her 3 girls are growing up fast, and they'd love to see their Uncle Landon again. Oh, and your best friend, Eric. His girlfriend's pregnant. I don't know yet, but I'm sure he'll be excited when he finds out." Ryan grinned, his words cutting deeper. "You may be tough, Landon, but the people I deal with are ruthless. They owe me favors you wouldn't believe. Maybe Emily has trouble staying away from you, but tonight we'll find out who she really chooses. If she leaves me for you, I'll accept it. It'll hurt, but I'll move on. I refuse to stay with a woman who's still tied to another man. A woman who's still tied to another man, but if she chooses me, there will be changes. What you 2 did today has damaged my trust, and it's going to take time to repair that." Ryan's G-days grew colder. "If she does choose me, you're done. No more contact. No texts. No calls. No emails. You'll disappear from her life. If you run into her in public, you walk away. If you're at the same event, you leave. No sneaking around. You don't listen. The consequences will be far worse than you think. They won't just affect you. They'll affect your loved ones too. Do you understand how serious I am?" Landon blinked. He was taken aback by how much I knew about him and his family. He asked, "How do you know so much about me and my family?" I said, "I have people who own me. People you wouldn't want to cross paths with." Ryan replied, "Even you don't know what you're dealing with, Landon." He shook his head in disbelief. "So you're really giving her the chance to leave you for me?" "I'm a man of my word," Ryan said firmly. "If she was anyone else, today's actions would have ended things right there. But I love Emily, and I'm giving her one chance. If you're right, if she can't stay away from you, then by midnight you'll hear from her. If not, she's chosen to stay loyal to me, and you'll be out of it. Her life forever. You won't get another chance." Landon leaned forward, still defiant. "She's already told me she wants to be with me. I have no doubt she'll reach out." Ryan stood, his expression cold and final. I hope I never hear your name again, but we'll see soon enough. As he left the table, a shadow moved from the corner, following close behind. Landon's smug grin faded as he realized it wasn't just Ryan who had been watching. One of Ryan's bodyguards had been there the whole time. I realized that Ryan had been nearby the whole time. This might have made me reconsider my belief that he was just a mild-mannered husband. The drive home felt like it took forever. My mind was tangled in uncertainty. Would Emily still be mine when this was over? Or would she choose him? I was so confused. I finally walked into the house, and the silence was thick, almost suffocating. Emily was at the kitchen table. Her face was tense with nerves. She was already crying. I could see the weight of what had just happened in her eyes. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat down across from her. Emily, I know everything. I cut through the tension. I've seen the messages between you and Landon. Her eyes widened, but I didn't give her a chance to speak before you tried to explain. I've got contacts in my line of work. People who owe me favors. You don't want to know what they're capable of. I paused, letting my words sink in. I could see regret in your eyes, but right now, that means nothing to me. What you did today wasn't just disrespectful, it was a betrayal of the trust that holds our marriage together. I refuse to live with someone who disregards our vows and the sanctity of what we share. I could see the weight of my words crushing her, but I didn't stop. Some people think infidelity only means sleeping with someone else, but in my world the idea of letting another man into your heart or getting close to your body is enough to shatter trust. I said firmly, every word heavy with meaning. Flirting with Landon, dressing provocatively without even wearing underwear, holding his hand in public, it all counts as betrayal to me. Even if it didn't get physical, the damage is done. I looked her in the eye, making sure she understood. I'll never tolerate infidelity. I'm not going to share you with anyone else. Our marriage depends on respect and loyalty, and I won't compromise on that. I understand you shared something with Landon once upon a time. Maybe those feelings are still there, but you're married to me, and I'm telling you right now, I won't let you be his or anyone else's. I took a deep breath, my voice softening just a little despite everything. I'm not walking away from you. I love you, Emily, and I'm willing to fight for us. I need you to be completely honest with me. While you were sitting with him today, did he try anything? Has anyone else ever crossed that line during our marriage? She said quickly, her voice thick with emotion, I swear it never happened. No one has ever tried. Only you. I stared at her for a moment, her tear-streaked face pleading with me to believe her. But you were ready to let it happen today, weren't you? She asked gently, pushing for the truth. Her head dropped lower as she sobbed quietly. I don't know. I never meant for any of this to happen. I'm so sorry, Ryan. I've been so foolish. Please forgive me for my mistake. If he had so much as touched you, this conversation would be over. She said firmly, her tone unyielding. But it seems that aside from some flirtations and inappropriate messages, nothing crossed a line that would end our marriage. Your actions today have hurt me deeply. I paused before continuing. Now, tell me why you wore that dress. Be honest. Did you have plans to seduce him or let things go further? Ryan never, she replied quickly, her voice trembling. I just wanted to feel desirable again to revisit those old emotions. I realize now how selfish and stupid I was. Landon has this way of getting inside my head, but I never wanted to betray you. You have to believe me, Emily. I want to believe you. I'm going to ask you a question, and I need you to be honest with me. I've made it clear that I won't share you with another man, and I won't be in a marriage with someone who still has feelings for someone else. So, here's your choice. Think about it carefully because once it's made, there's no going back. I understand that you once loved Landon, but you need to decide now. If you choose him, I'm letting you go. There won't be any retaliation from me, and we'll divide everything fairly. You'll be free to live your life with him, but if you stay with me, there's no going back to him. You will cut him out of your life completely, today, tomorrow, and forever. He'll be dead to you, and you'll follow the conditions I've already outlined to him. Do you understand? She looked up at me, her eyes determined. Yes, Ryan. I understand and I agree. This is your one chance, Emily. The one time you get to choose between your past and your future. I'm going to take a shower, and when I come back, I expect your decision. I said before turning and walking away as the water poured over me. I couldn't help but think about the gravity of her choice. When I finally returned to the kitchen, she rushed toward me, wrapping her arms tightly around me, her lips finding mine in a flurry of desperate kisses. Ryan, I'll never leave. You know, I'll never make this mistake again. I want to be the wife you deserve. I want to build our future together. You're the only man I love. She cried earnestly, tears streaming down her cheeks. Her words touched something deep within me, stirring a complex mix of emotions. I knew forgiveness wouldn't come easily, but her sincere commitment to making things right gave me hope. Emily, you've hurt me deeply today. Rebuilding what we had won't be easy, but if you're serious about putting in the work, maybe we can find our way back. The work might help us find our way back. I told her, holding her close. We'll take it step by step and we'll face the storm together. I love you, she whispered. Tears of relief fell as she clung to me. We kissed again, this time with a renewed sense of passion as I carried her to our bed. The mixture of anger and desire burned in me. We made love fiercely, reclaiming the connection we had nearly lost in those moments. She gave herself to me completely. I whispered my love for her between breaths as we lost ourselves in the intensity of the moment. We stayed wrapped in each other for what felt like hours, finding comfort in the intimacy we'd been missing. The next day, Landon was clearly frustrated. He muttered, "Damn it, she didn't reach out. I guess she chose to stay with him." He thought they had something real, but he'd failed to convince her to come with him that day. If he'd succeeded, she would have left Ryan. I'll get her back. I'm not giving up. I'll find a way. Days later, Landon tried again, sending Emily text messages meant to lure her away. This time, she showed me the messages right away, proving her new commitment to honesty. I praised her for it, letting her know that rebuilding our trust would take time, but that we were on the right path. Then I reached out to Landon with a simpler reminder of the consequences of his persistence. Long after that, Landon's parents' beloved pets went missing for a while. When he realized what happened, he was clearly panicked. "What did you do?" he yelled, his tone a mix of anger and fear. I kept my cool and gave him a stern warning. "Landon, you've crossed the line, and now you're going to face the consequences. If you ever contact Emily again, the repercussions will be severe. This is your last warning." With that, I waited, confident that my message would be effective. I've made it clear that my top priority is ensuring Emily's safety and the stability of our marriage. Landon, since you've ignored my warnings, I'll do whatever it takes to make sure you understand that your threatening attitude isn't doing you any favors. I haven't even decided yet if your parents' dogs will return unharmed or if they'll return at all. What do you think I should do? Should I give your parents a call and let them know? How would they feel about that? Landon's voice softened with regret. Okay, I'm sorry. Just bring them back. I'll stay away from Emily. I promise. That's more like it, I replied. But remember, next time it won't be the dogs you get. I'm not in the best position here. My colleagues have their own ideas, but I'll do what I can to fix this. Let's hope we never have to have this conversation again, because next time the consequences will be much worse. 3 days later, Landon's parents were overjoyed when their dogs returned, completely unaware of what had happened. Landon, however, got the message loud and clear. He even sent me a brief text, "Thank you." From that moment on, he was on board. He got the picture. He stayed away from Emily and eventually found a job in another city. He tried to find out more about me but hit a wall. He soon realized that details about my life were well protected, and his efforts led nowhere. 2 weeks after the incident, I presented Emily with a postnuptial agreement drawn up by my lawyer. In the agreement, she would forfeit everything, including rights to any children born during our marriage, in the event of infidelity. It was a perfect solution, but it gave her a good reason to think twice about making the same mistake again. With this new understanding, our relationship began to heal. Emily knew I was always vigilant, and the postnuptial agreement was a reminder of the stakes. A year later, she became pregnant with our first child,